All right, so just jumping into the news today, basically a Norwegian cruise liner is being quarantined right now due to a possible cholera outbreak with thousands on board. So the story kind of broke on Saturday, but there's been more updates going about it today. Basically, a Norwegian cruise ship with over 2,000 passengers and 1,000 crew members on board has been denied permission to dock in Manatee over fears of a potential cholera outbreak on board. At least 15 people on the cruise ship Norwegian Dawn have been isolated and samples were taken for testing on Sunday, according to a statement from the port of Maritas probably. The test results are expected on Tuesday, Reuters news agency has reported. Now, people on board have been saying they developed mild stomach symptoms after visiting South Africa for a couple days in mid-February. It was a scheduled stop on a cruise. And so basically there have been a number of cholera outbreaks in southern African countries over the last few months, the BBC reported. Since about January 23, over 3,000 people in the region have been unalive from cholera, and about 200,000 have been infected by the disease. Now, if you're unfamiliar with cholera, is an infection that causes severe diarrhea and dehydration. It is rare in the developed world because we have the technology as well as the antibiotics and the medicine to take care of it. But if it's left untreated, then it is almost always fatal. It is one of the most deadliest diseases on planet Earth. And just going more in depth about cholera, about the history of it in the 19th century, 1800s, cholera spread across the world from its original reservoir in the Ganges Delta in India, and 6 subsequent pandemics unalived millions of people across all continents. Current one being started in South Asia in 1961, reaching Africa in 1971 and the Americas in 1991. And while we were able to get it under control in America, it has still been raging on in South Asia as well as like South Africa, or Africa in general, since this time. And so this is why it's very much important to be aware where you're traveling of, not to be in fear, but more so be aware of that, we are a globalized nation, and, diseases that we might not have to worry about here in America that aren't endemic to America are endemic into other countries, meaning it is raging in that part of the country and part of the world. And so it's one of the things you need to be mindful when you're traveling worldwide. Also, symptoms of cholera basically is started through ingestion of contaminated food or water. Cholera can cause severe acute watery diarrhea, and severe forms of disease can kill within hours if left untreated. Most people infected with V. cholera do not develop any symptoms, although bacteria are present in their feces for 1 to 10 days after infection and are shed back into the environment, potentially infecting other people. But among people who developed it, the majority always have mild or moderate symptoms. It takes about 12 hours and 5 days for a person to show symptoms, and a minority of patients develop acute watery diarrhea with severe dehydration. And so that is what some of the passengers are facing right now, about 15 of them, like I said. So while they said at least 15 people have been showing stomach symptoms or mild stomach symptoms, no one has yet to show acute watery dehydration or watery diarrhea, meaning that they will have a severe form of cholera, and that they will be kind of like in a severe category for that. Now, this is very concerning to the point not only people that are infected, but also to the many people that are still on board. About 2,184 passengers on the Norwegian Dawn, along with 1,026 crew members, are currently on board and being quarantined. About 2,000 of those passengers would have completed their trip and disembarked in Port Louis, while 2,279 new passengers were expected to board the ship. And so this is very concerning to the fact that, if there isn't proper cleanliness taken after they disembark on this cruise, it gets to a point where you're now having an active spread that containing people that are potentially from multiple parts of the world and multiple nations and multiple countries and stuff. So that is something that we need to really monitor if this does get out of hand again, and with the new passengers coming aboard, because that will probably be that the ship wasn't as cleaned or wasn't as disinfected as it should have been. But now, looking at a quick update to the story, the cruise ship in question has finally been allowed to dock in the Maritas after tests showed no cholera on board. The Maritas government cleared the Norwegian Dawn, which is owned and run by a Miami-based Norwegian cruise line company. to dock at the harbor in the capital, Port Louis, after health officials found no traces of cholera in tests conducted on the ship's water. Mauritius officials blocked the ship from docking Sunday because 15 people on board were ill with vomiting and diarrhea. Okay, so a lot of them had diarrhea. Now, for cholera, it usually is in a minority of patients, like I just said. So if a lot of them or all of them had diarrhea and vomiting, it could be something else. It probably was something else, and they tested it out and said that it is something else. So that is definitely good to hear. The Mauritius government also said that 6 passengers who had been isolated after falling infect had mild cases of the viral infection. Gastroenteritis is basically an inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract, including stomach, intestine. Symptoms include diarrhea, vomiting, and a host of other things. Going down here. Abdominal pain, fever, lack of energy, dehydration also might occur, and this typically lasts less than 2 weeks. And so this is not as concerning as cholera. It would have been a lot more concerning with cholera, but they still got their vacation room because that is not pleasant to deal with. But Mauritius required testing of these passengers out of overabundance of caution because of how serious the outbreak of cholera is around the world, as well as the threat of like diseases that were thought to be endemic in other parts of the world basically are taking a resurgence and have the potential to become another like pandemic, you know, as we've seen with the COVID a few years back. And so now going forward, everyone leaving the ship will be screened by health officials, said Dr. Bushum Ari, the director of health services at Mauritius Ministry of Health. Mauritian Cruise Line said passengers will now disembark the ship on Tuesday after the quarantine and go through those inspections. And to really just end off the story, to understand the scale of how bad this could be if they don't really disinfect this ship, like I said, basically it's 294 meters long, which is 964 feet. With 14 decks, a casino, a theater, and a video game arcade among its facilities. And so we're going to continue to monitor the situation like many other people will, because this is, you know, a very much big scare we just avoided. Even though cholera was not, you know, detected, it's still one of those things where it's just like, you have a gastrointestinal illness that's still on board. You don't know how much you disinfect the ship. And cruise ships have a, you know, reputation of being some of the grimiest place you can have on earth, which is like a breather of germs, and they have to take special precautions in how you disinfect, even on a normal case, let alone just having like a bacteria and like a gastrointestinal outbreak on board. So this is something we're going to monitor. I'm going to monitor, get an update to the story if there needs to be. But other than that, if you like what you see, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that wonderful good stuff. And if you want to see another video about a current outbreak that's happening in Florida with the measles as well as other parts in the US, I implore you to click right here. But other than that, stay warm, stay frosty, depending on what part of the country you're in, and peace out.